It is just a huge honor today to have Emmet Scott. He's the CEO and co-founder of Community Dental Partners, a DSO supporting the dental practices Smile Magic Dentistry and Braces, a Chuck E. Cheese-like dental practice for kids. His business partner and townie is Dr. Chad Evans, has been his best friend since they were 2 years old. Emmet is also the host of DSO Secrets, a podcast focused on building the best DSOs and group practices in the industry. He created a Facebook group by the same name for leaders in the dental group industry to discuss some of the most difficult components of running a DSO. He's a senior faculty and partner at the Dentist Entrepreneur Organization, DEO, a mastermind network of dentists and their business professionals looking to scale their dental practice model. Emmet is also a member of the executive committee for the ADSO, an association of the largest DSOs. Emmet recently launched National Dental Partners to give dentists a third option where they don't have to grind it out on their own, but don't have to sell their soul to the large DSOs either. Instead, the dentist leader can be supported by full DSO resources, but keep all their autonomy to build their organization with their own entrepreneurial vision. Before building Smile Magic, Emmet started in the financial planning industry, where he built and sold two financial planning firms, one in Houston, Texas, the other in Vegas. He then launched his own radio show from Las Vegas called The Entrepreneur Life and established a consulting firm branded Entrepreneur Advisors. He is married with 5 children, all redheads. How adorable. When not working, he enjoys reading business and leadership books, watching TED Talks, and playing racquetball. He is fluent in American Sign Language and worked with deaf students in California and Arizona as part of a 2-year church missionary program. He graduated from Brigham Young University in accounting. I'm so excited to have you on this show. And the reason I'm so excited, I want to be clear, these are never commercials. I'm not hired to be your recruiting agent, anything like that. But at 50, I turn 58 next month in August, and I've done my 32 years. I'm worried mostly about the kids graduating during the middle of a pandemic and economics collapse, racial turmoil, and now we're going into a presidential election. I just can't imagine. When in 1987, I was this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed dentist that just flew out of the dental school cage and lived happily ever after, and they're walking out like, holy moly, what the hell happened? And what I like the most about the DSOs right now is they're the only ones providing jobs for my homies that just graduated. And I'm a hypocrite because I don't want to hire them straight out of school in Phoenix, Arizona. I mean, I've done that in 32 years and love them. They're fun. But when they leave after a year or two, you're redoing work. The first email I got this morning was an implant case that one of my associates had done years ago that needs to be replaced. My friend's going to replace it. And, but I'm going to pay for it. It's a disaster. So my question to you is, I want to just start brutal. And then the other thing that I was happy to get to, I know why you're succeeding in dentistry, and that is your background is accounting. And I've been yelling for 32 years that dentists don't know their numbers. You walk into any dental office, a hygienist gets done doing a cleaning exam and bite wings, the dentist does the exam, then I stop him in the hallway and say, hey, your hygienist just did a cleaning exam of bite wings. You've had the same hygienist for 10 years. You've seen this lady every 3 months for 10 years. Did you make $5.18 after taxes profit, or did you lose $9? And they don't have a clue. And then that's why we switched to open dental, because since it's open, my dream is that someday we can make bridges to QuickBooks Pro and TurboTax. Look at the government. Here's the IRS. Hey, you owe me taxes, and if you pay the wrong amount, you'll go to jail. I'm sorry, sir, how much do I owe you? I have no freaking idea, but you better pay me the right amount. The government is as insane as the dentist, because the government is all lawyers in the Congress and the Senate, and the dentists are all doctors, and so it doesn't surprise me that an accountant like you walked in and said, okay, some of this funny stuff doesn't add up right. So I want you to first of all, just focus on the homies. They just graduated from dental school a month ago. They're 24. They're $400,000 in debt. They're scared shitless. What are you telling young kids today as they come out of school?
Well, Howard, great to be on your show. Thank you so much. By the way, Chad Evans, Dr. Evans, who I've been friends with, as you read, since we were 2 years old, just loved and started laughing when you said, the best part about you is you're an accountant, because he loves giving me a hard time about that. And he often brings his taxes to me and says, hey, will you do my taxes this year? I don't really know that level of detail around accounting, but he's going to love that you said that. Number two, I have studied and worked with entrepreneurs for now 20 years. And one of the things, and Howard, you have this capability and you have this perspective, is the best entrepreneurs are always worrying about and associating with the future, with the younger generations. It was interesting because I was interviewing Rick Workman, right, Heartland Dental, and I asked him, hey, where are you focusing right now? And he says, Emmett, let me tell you one thing. My generation doesn't understand the future. When I graduated, I had $5,000 in debt for total amount. I don't think even had it in debt, total amount going through dental school. And there was 0 women in my graduating class. There's no way that we have full perspective of where things are going. We need to look at the younger generations and build things for there. And as I've listened to your podcast and you've got your 4 boys and all of that, like your focus, and every great entrepreneur does this, focuses on that younger generation. So anyway, I think it's the right place to start. And the number one thing I would say is the future is coming, right? If anyone wanted to say what happened with COVID-19, what did it change? It changed 0. It accelerated everything. So if you were going to retire in the next 5 years, you retired in June, right? So the industry just shrunk dramatically. If you were going to get on Zoom calls, you got on Zoom calls in April, May, and June, right? I mean, whatever, if you were going to implement some new technology, you're implementing it now, or you're deciding, hey, this market's moving too fast for me. So the number one thing I would say is those coming out of school, focus on where the future is going. Do not listen to voices that are trying to preserve and protect the past, because in any industry, when that happens, when you focus there, you get ran over. You know, the scorpion always stings before it dies. You've got to be focused on where things are going for the future. And the other thing I would say is you have all of the power. I hear associates all the time saying, you know, I don't want to get in a bad DSO. I don't want to. I totally agree. I don't want to have a bad dentist partner. I totally agree, right? I don't want to have a bad associate. I think people don't step back and realize, like, I actually get to choose that. I get to interview them. I get to decide from them, what do I want out of my career and what cultures do I want? You know, no one's there. No one's stuck. No one doesn't have options right now. If anything, you have tons of options and tons of people that you can partner with. And that's something I'm really just passionate about.
So how many locations do you have? How many states are you in? How many dentists work for you?
So Community Dental Partners supports Smile Magic and Family Smiles brands. They're in rural towns as well as larger urban communities. We've got pediatric, Medicaid, we've got adults, all of those different patient types that we're supporting. It's over 30 locations around Texas. National Dental Partners is now supporting other groups, and it has 65 in that. We have 150 practices that are interested in growing with National Dental Partners right now. And so I would say right now, Howard, we've got 30 locations going to 65, maybe being at 100 soon. We'll see. I'm really picky around the only dental partners that I want to partner with, focus on, and support are the entrepreneur ones. So Howard, honestly, if you came to me and said, hey, I'm retiring, would you like to, have Dr. Evans or Dr. Copeland buy my practice and you guys could support it and so forth, I would say it's not something we're interested in. If you said to me, Howard, hey, I'm really excited. I found a patient type that we really do a good job on. I have a good system and process, but I don't know how to scale it. I'm going to do the second location, third location, or maybe it's fourth, fifth, and sixth. And I've got a vision to do that, but it gets expensive. It's hard. Can you partner with me? I'm interested. So we've always been very focused on the entrepreneurial dentist. Even with our associates, we're looking for those who want to own their own practice someday. I think we're a little different in that way. You know, a lot of times when a dentist hires an associate, they're looking for, hey, you know, you mentioned this in the beginning. Will you stay with me for the next 20 years and never leave? Right. And ours is, hey, do you have passion and interest in owning your own practice someday? Awesome. I like to run with the entrepreneurs because I feel like I'm running with the future.
When you were talking about Rick earlier, were you talking about Rick Workman of Heartland or Rick?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if you're talking about Rick at Comfort Dental. There's two big Ricks. There's Rick Workman.
Yeah. I did recently an interview over at the DEO. We had a big summit, and Rick Workman was there. And I just pound these guys with questions like, hey, what's really going on here, so forth. And, Rick Workman is not nervous about being honest, which I've appreciated. And he said, listen, my generation is out of touch. The younger generation knows what's going on. If we follow them, we're moving in the right direction. The interesting thing is working outside of this industry with some of the best entrepreneurs in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, they say the exact same thing. They don't say millennials don't work hard or whatever. Because frankly, Howard, if I looked at a baby boomer in the 80s as a dentist working 3 days a week, I don't know, they kind of look like millennials to me, or what millennials are accused of today, right?
Well, I love both of the Ricks, and I talked to Rick Workman, and I talk to both of them all the time, love them to death. But they're kind of on, Rick Workman of Heartland has mostly employees, and Rick Kirshner of Comfort Dental, he has 300 offices, and they're all owner operators. And it sounds like you kind of like the owner operator model more. You don't want someone to just sell their practice, then you try to find an associate. You're looking for a dentist that's going to stay on the team. And also, you're friends with orthodontist we had on the show, Oleg Drut with Diamond Braces, and he's a fantastic gentleman. And that was kind of,
I know him through DEO, which, by the way, if you're an entrepreneur dentist, if you want to scale, like that's the organization. I would recommend other ones. It's just the only one that I know that's actually helping dentists scale their business. And it's where they here's what I've heard, Howard. It's a place I feel safe to talk about my vision without getting beat up, So yeah, Oleg's in there, and there's a lot of other great dentist entrepreneurs.
And who's the guy? And that was Mark Cooper, who when people who started that, right?
And then Jake Poole bought that from him, and has really kind of taken it to the next level. You always get to stand on the shoulders of other people's success.
Yeah, well, yeah. Mark was getting up there. How old's Mark now? He
probably I don't know.
But it's funny because when everybody says Mark Cooper, it doesn't register because my whole childhood, he was the Swami. And I always listen to the Swami in the email news groups on Yahoo and, dentist at Yahoo. But he was the Swami, and he just had a vision. And I was always attracted to people who could have a vision and at 30,000 feet and be fearless in it. But back to the orthodontics I was making is, I got out of school in 87, and 85 was when Orthodontic Centers of America did their IPO on the New York Stock Exchange, the only one in the dental space. And I think it obviously fell for that reason. He bought a bunch of old retiring orthodontists who had $1 million practice. And then as soon as they retired, as soon as they sold the practice and retired, he replaced them with some young kid orthodontist straight out of school. And he had some big macro ideas. He started 3 orthodontic programs to increase the supply of orthodontists, which still accounts for about 35 orthodontists per year graduating. But he did. You just can't take.
Howard, you see this too often, and we know this from subprime mortgage roll-ups, right? Take us back to 2007, 2008. You don't pull a bunch of crap together, call it high EBITDA, and sell it off to a PE firm and think it's going to hold together, right? At the end of the day, this is about quality care to a patient is where this is going to go. And that's where longevity comes in. So I think anybody, and this would be my warning to any listener out there who says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw some practices together. I'm going to find some stupid PE firm who will buy it. which frankly, 10 years ago, Howard, you could. And then they're going to have to figure out how you actually align with clinicians, whether there's actually really good clinical care there, whether someone just took a big chunk of money and they all walked out the door and you go, holy smokes, I just actually lost all the leadership, everything that was actually bringing value, I just paid to leave. I think those days are over. And I think, early on, anytime you have a consolidating industry, there's a lot of mistakes being made. But I think there's a maturity coming to this industry that at the end of the day, it's about bringing quality care. And there's two ways, that you could have this platform in place. You can have a dentist who they themselves have built enough support around themselves, and they've kept their life simple enough that they can bring quality care. Or a dentist who's entrepreneur who has a lot going on. They've hired an associate, they've done this, they've done that, and they need additional support to bring quality care. I can tell you this, a single dentist stressed out about payroll, stressed out about the gals fighting in the front, stressed out about marketing, stressed out about their IT not working, does not bring good quality care. Right? I mean, that's just human nature.
So true. So have you, during this pandemic, so it was March 11th that the World Health Organization declared this. What's changed since March? You earlier said that, dentists that are 60 and their 5 redheaded daughters are raised, they've gone to college, all your bills are paid. And have you been seeing a lot of older people like me just saying, you know what, I don't need this anymore, I'm selling? Have you seen an increase in older people selling because of the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, why not, right? I mean, if you're in a financial situation, why do you want to go through a global pandemic, right, of this magnitude, manage the fact that, some of them, they have spouses with health conditions at home. They want to be sensitive to that. They've got staffing things they're trying to figure out. I mean, it's a lot of complexity to say, I'm going to spin all this up, and then in 12 months, I'm actually looking for someone to buy my practice. Like, if I was them, I'd do the same thing. I'd say, it's been a great ride. I've loved the last 30 years, but I'm done. I mean, there's no reason to push past this. I'd say the other thing I'm seeing, Howard, is I've got 5 locations. 3 of them haven't really been doing that well. 2 of them I've been able to support really well. I'm done with those other 3. So I'm seeing a shrinking of supply, right? But demand is still there. I mean, let's be honest. I think that you're probably similar to me in that your biggest concern when you go shopping right now or go to any place is you're like, so what's your guys' rules? Do I need to wear the mask, not wear the mask? We all got it hanging from our ear so we can be socially responsible. We're just not sure what everyone's rules are. Most patients are the same way. Now, it depends on geography and age and so forth. But a lot of patients just want to get in and get their work done right now. But they just got to kind of know what the rules are. So the issue for most practices right now is not patient flow. A lot of it's around staffing or whether the doctor and their personal situation can step into this mess or really, needs to bow out.
Yeah. So we had the first wave in March, the stock market collapsed a third. And then the government did what they always do. They just print money, and they print it. Usually they've been printing about 1 trillion more pieces of paper a year. And I've watched this. The first president that I really paid attention to was Jimmy Carter, and then Reagan. But they just been adding 1 trillion a year. But they added $4 trillion, and that paper has to end up somewhere. And obviously, a lot of it ended up in the market. You see this big balloon in the market. The coronavirus is weird in the fact that about 85% of all humans live in the Eastern Hemisphere, not over here in the Americas, and about another 85% live in the Northern Hemisphere, not the Southern Hemisphere. And that coronavirus, which they've known about since the 60s, kind of peters out in the summer and comes back in the fall. And they're looking at that first hump. And then the government shot off all its cannons. I mean, $4 trillion, gave everybody a stimulus check, did increase, all that stuff. But all that stuff is going to be coming to an end this month. And the end of, it all runs out. I'm sorry, not June 24th, but by the end of July, there's nothing left. And then September, all the epidemiologists, which I don't care what your politics are. They're epidemiologists, and I know a dozen of them from ASU where I got my MBA. They're saying it's going to come back in the fall and be a double whammy. And then, but the good news is at Christmas, they say that the worst should be behind, and then 2021, it just fades away and then goes on. So how are you seeing that? I mean, I talked to Rick Workman yesterday, and he thought his Heartland Dental, his entire operation was going to probably finish June and July almost at 95% of pre-pandemic levels. But are you worried that we're going to have a setback in the fall in September?
So at what level do we want to answer this question? At the dental level, or like life in general, or where do you want me to attack this? Because I've got lots of levels of
life in general. I'm answer as if I was one of your 5 redheads. What are their age ranges? What are their age ranges?
Well, now I'm 20, and now I'm up to 6 kids because we just adopted a young man who's deaf, who's 16.
Aww.
And so now I've got 6 in the mix. But 20 down to 12. So and my youngest is a girl. All the rest are boys.
I got to tell you, don't ever believe about the redhead, because I was my mom was a redhead, and I came back from college one time, and I needed to talk to mom and my sister. I had 5 sisters, and one of them was a redhead, and she was saying, well, mom's in the bathroom dyeing her hair. And I thought, oh, no. So it took like an hour before she came out, and her hair was the same color. And I said, Mom, Jean Marie just told me that you were in there dyeing your hair, and your hair's the same color. Well, what's going on? She goes, well, I just dyed my hair. I said, well, it's the same color. She goes, no, I dye it red. I was in Creighton thinking my mother was a redhead my whole life because my sister Jean Marie's a redhead. Turns out that my dad's mom, who I only knew with white hair, was the redhead, and my mom had brown hair and always dyed it red. And I thought Jean Marie got it from mom, and Jean Marie got it from my dad's mom. So I'm like, okay, that's when
this one's genetic. This one, my wife's a redhead, and yeah, I always say I got to do the structure, but she did all the painting and design. Because the kids all have her look. Listen, at the end of the day, I think, let me answer this from a dental perspective, okay? Dental, to me, needs to step up and be healthcare, right? We need to innovate against any type of viruses or anything else. And we've done this before, right? You had the AIDS epidemic, and we believed that it could go aerosol. We didn't know anything. It's just, it comes fast, it comes hard. Here you've got dentists, even today, blood on their hands or on their gloves, right? Dealing with AIDS patients, and they do it flawlessly. Like, we can do this. Like, dentistry is one of the best at bloodborne pathogen and disease control. In fact, if you go into other healthcare, you would be shocked. Like, we are very good at this. I think we need to step into it, own it, innovate around it. Here's the good news / bad news. The good news is dentistry has a 35% penetration rate, okay? What that means is 65% of people do not come to the dentist on a regular basis, but they still have teeth, and carbohydrate consumption, as far as I can tell, especially for myself, continues to go up, right? So the need is continuing to be there, but the biggest challenge has been we in the dental industry are not stepping into this need, right? Like, cell phones have a 120% penetration rate. Now, we'll never get to that because you can't have 2 sets of teeth, so to speak. You can have 2 cell phones. But what we could do is we could treat more patients. I mean, if we took our penetration rate from 35% to 70%, Howard, that would mean we doubled the entire industry. Okay, right? That's what the potential is here.
Explain how dentistry has a 35% penetration rate and cell phones have a 125% penetration rate. Okay, explain that.
Okay, so if you think penetration rate is kind of a business term for like how much of the market are you really serving, right? So we think of it like how many iPhones are there versus Samsungs or Androids? Like, who has the penetration rate when you have competitors? So here's an interesting fact. Do you know what the penetration rate of Heartland is as a percentage of the entire current dental industry? It's 1%.
1%.
1%. Yeah. 99% is not Heartland, right? So that's typically how we think about penetration rate, is like competitors or, different people in the space. But when you take an industry, you say, how many people are utilizing this service on a regular basis? Well, on the basis that the service should be utilized. Okay. You mentioned accounting. Accounting's got the best product in the world, by the way, because they've got a product that the government demands that you have to do. I'm talking about tax returns here, right? If you don't do them, you go to prison. And after you do it, it expires every year. Right. That's why our accountants typically aren't that good, because their product is like so built in as a required need. Dentistry has some similar components. Everybody has teeth. Carbohydrate consumption is very high. And if we have any money, then we want to do cosmetic things with them. Right. And yet we have 35% penetration, meaning 65% of people are not coming to the dentist on a regular basis or any basis at all. And you say, why is that happening? Now, how does cell phones have 120%? How can you be above 100? Well, because people can buy 2 cell phones, right? They can have a work phone. And so you can actually, so when you look at globally, cell phones are outperforming dentistry. When you look at dentistry just in America, we're still terrible.
What are cars penetration rate? Is that the same as cell phones, about 125?
That's an interesting question. It's probably higher than that for those who are car junkies who have 3 or 4. I would think that I think it would be pretty high for those who can drive. How many vehicles?
How many cars does Rick Workman have now? I mean, his garage at his home in Florida. I mean, how many cars are parked in that thing?
I don't know, but that would be an awesome count. Howard, by the way, that's one of the things I love about your podcast. I have a son that's ADD, and I like trying to keep up with him is so much fun. So your topics are awesome.
Do I have an ADD interview style? Yeah, my mind.
I do. I love it. I love
that.
it though. The best entrepreneurs are ADD. So.
Yeah. So this 35%
on this penetration rate. I mean, that's, if you look at the strategy, and you can attest to this, Howard, in the 80s and 90s, what was the marketing strategy of dental practices? Well, I can tell you in the early 80s, it was illegal. That's what it was, right? If your name on your door was greater than 2 inches in most states, the dental board was coming out and measuring it. Now, what did you really do for marketing? You did lobbying. That's what you did. You limited the number of licenses in the state, and you basically moved the supply demand curve, right? You said demand's going to stay consistent. If we can keep supply down, i.e. only a certain number of dentists come into a state, then we can work 3 days a week and make 400 grand. It's going to be awesome, right? That was really the strategy. And I'm not trying to be mean about it or whatever. It's not a bad strategy. You might say it's anti-capitalistic, but it's not, it worked. What started to happen is the state started loosening up regulations, which has happened in every industry, where they said, we can't limit the number of licenses in a given state. And I can tell you, Nevada, Texas, states that I've lived in, they were some of the best at limiting licenses. They started to lift that up. The other thing that happened in 1995, this thing called the internet came online. One of the things we had as a benefit in the 80s and 90s within this industry is the exciting things to do was like go to the dentist and go to the bank. Okay. There wasn't this thing called Facebook. There wasn't Candy Crush. I didn't have distractions, and they didn't have billions of marketing coming into a customer's brain to say, hey, use your discretionary income over here. So guess what happens to dentistry? We're flat-footed, still measuring the size of the imprints that can be on somebody's door. And here comes Facebook and all these other social media ads starting to eat up everyone's brain and saying, come buy our product, come buy our product. We're terrible at marketing. We're so behind the 8 ball on that. And we've relied on great margins. So if we want to get into accounting here, we've got great margins within this industry, and demand is built in. Like the guy who built out Candy Crush, he had to sit there and say, are people going to like doing this? He had to see if demand was there, and then he built supply. For us, we get to be lazy. We know demand's there. It's just like, what supply do we want to bring? What's happened, Howard, now is we're at 35% penetration rate, right? Like people need dentistry, and yet we're so poor at marketing that even with their need, we're not supplying it.
I'm going to take full advantage of having just a genetic entrepreneur like yourself for 20 years to just ask 3 off the wall questions of things that are coming to my ADD mind. You said in the beginning you had Medicaid practices. So I just love to call out, hypocrisy. So let's talk about Medicaid. On Dental Town, a Connecticut dentist reached an $82,000 settlement with state Medicaid program for $6,500 of overcharges. I have been saying for 32 years you can't do Medicaid because it's ran by the government. And the government, every government is just a mob. I mean, you know what the mafia is, you know what the mob is. Yes, I'm totally aware that Putin's mob and China's mob is more criminal than our mob, but we still have the mob. And I don't do business with people that if we have a dispute, my mom, I went to Catholic school. They taught us we're not allowed to kidnap people and put them in cages, but, Medicaid will come out and they'll arrest you. That's kidnapping. They'll put you in a cage. And so how do you do business with Medicaid when they have the authority to kidnap you and put you in a cage? I mean,
oh man, I didn't realize we had so much alignment around being anti-federalist. We could just have a totally different podcast here.
I mean, when this presidential election, people are looking at the government, what to do. Man, government, the history of mankind, the people kill 1% of their own. The governments have killed 6% of the people that they're the HOA of. I mean, when you think the government is the solution, it's called history. You ought to just start reading history books. But, I mean, when other countries, I've lectured in 50 countries, so I get to hear what everybody thinks about America, and they're just like, why do you have all these guns and look at these school shootings? I'm like, dude, they're not worried about the schools. Those guns are all aimed at Washington, D.C. That's the people that they fear.
It gets worse too when you have a government that can get on a news press release and they call it an executive order, and basically they can just do whatever they want, and they can say, hey, if they're over the age of 10 and they're not wearing a mask, go ahead and arrest them, right? So yes, we are very aligned. And guess who gets hurt when you give government that much power? In history, minorities always get hurt first, right? That's what happens. You empower a police force, there's evil and good people in every organization, which I've been having lots of conversations with my kids around this. Stress creates theys and thems and we's and us's, and that's not reality. Reality is there is a bunch of humans. All right, we're going to get on a different topic. So Medicaid, how are we playing in Medicaid? I can tell you this, we know that we're dancing with the devil, okay? In fact, I will tell you that the best DSOs out there typically are those who are supporting Medicaid practices, because we don't make billing mistakes. We do fraud, waste, and abuse, Howard, right? So we have to be very careful about everything. People always ask, how many of your charts do you audit each year? Because, good DSOs, they'll audit 1% to 5%, maybe some of them even up to 10%. We audit 100% of every billing charge that goes out. It comes to a centralized team. If doctor notes aren't perfect, if this isn't perfect, we're protecting our dentists. It's part of our job as a DSO, right? Now you move to PPO, you don't have those stresses, and you move to fee for service and you really don't have those stresses, right? You just got treatment coordination stress that you have to figure out. So yeah, we're dancing with the devil. I will also tell you though, I'm playing with the future, and I don't know a hospital system, because we act like we don't know how this story is going to end. We act like this is brand new and industry's never consolidated before. And even more, we act like a healthcare industry has never consolidated before, right? We know how the story ends. Have you ever walked into a hospital and they said, sorry, we're only fee for service. We don't take Medicaid here. They're the largest insurance provider in the world, right? So we know how this ends. If we know how to do that well, then everything else is much easier to do. So what really drove this is Dr. Evans has 7 children. He was providing care as an associate to Medicaid children, and a lot of people just didn't want to take care of that. They said, Medicaid messes up my schedule. They don't show up on time. This doesn't happen. They don't show up at all. Kids are hard to manage. They cry. This happens. And Chad said, I've got a lot of passion around this, right? I've got 7 kids. If you meet him, he's like one of the most patient people, and he's really good at dental care. Okay.
You
So
said
it's a really,
Chad, so Everett Chad Evans, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
does he just go by Chad?
He just goes by Chad. His dad is Everett. And so,
Oh,
yeah,
okay, okay.
yeah. So this is what Chad's passion was. I'm his best friend. He asked for help to open up his first dental practice. He says, this is the market I want to go after. I have the same conversation, Howard. We're going to be dancing with the devil. Are you interested in that? He says, everybody else is running away from it. They still need care, period.
Well, tell Chad
So,
we got some. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
so we build this. I just want to tell you what this practice looks like, because Chad says, and I also don't want it to be like a Medicaid practice. I said, well, Chad, you have kids. I have kids. You read in the beginning, Chuck E. Cheese Dental. We know that they like Chuck E. Cheese. We go to our kids. We say, hey, this needs a mascot. Because frankly, there's nothing in dental that kids actually really like, right? Hey, you want me to drill on your bones while you're awake? So we say, hey, what kind of mascot would you like? The boys all said we want a dragon. The girls said we want a bunny. We settled in the middle with a chipmunk. We put a movie theater and a play gym up front. We made the whole office, each operatory is a different page in a storybook. So they're part of a story. Kids get called back as prince or princess. They get gold coins along the way. At the end, they get crowned for their bravery and dentistry. They get a sticker. Mom got a sticker. We had to design that because mom was freaking out more than the child was. They get a balloon. They get to spend their money. And that experience, they say, when do I get to come back to the dentist? Okay. That's the experience Chad wanted to do for Medicaid kids. All right. Then I had to figure out how to bill all of this, make sure that we had all the compliance so we didn't all go to jail. Right. So that's what I think a DSO can do, is they can take the passion. If you've got somebody who says, I figured out, how to do all in fours, veneers, implants, whatever they're excited about. And here's other dentists who don't want to do this, or here's a market that really needs this, but I need support to scale it. To me, that's exciting. That's interesting. For Chad, it was like the underserved market. Where's all the dentists running away from? They're running away from Medicaid. They're running away from kids. They're running away from rural towns. That's where we're going to go. It's been very hard, very painful to figure all this out. But that's not my job. My job is a dental support organization, right? So I'm always, even though I'm the CEO of Community Dental Partners and National Dental Partners, my boss, my customer is clinicians, right? So I'm the CEO of a support organization, and that's what we do. So anyway, that's why we're in Medicaid. And that's how we handle it.
So let me ask another question about the government, since we're on government bashing right now. The dental board, and then Medicaid issues. So here's the government saying, well, we're concerned about the poor, but the poor is in dentistry is created by the government, because I've been out here in Arizona. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm across the street from the Guadalupe Indian Reservation, where there's 5,000 American Indians on a reservation with about 25,000 Mexicans. And about every 5 years, some qualified Mexican dentist comes down to Guadalupe where there are no dentists and opens up a dental office in an apartment. And sure enough, the American Dental Board calls their thug violent police, and that person is arrested. He's put in a cage. Because what was he doing? He was doing a $20 filling on a poor person. And it's not enough for the FDA to say, hey, this drug is not approved for this cancer. It's like, well, why are they doing it on rats? I have the cancer. I want to volunteer to do the experiment on me. And the government's like, well, that's not an option. The lady I bought my mansion from had a brain cancer, and there was a drug made in America. She couldn't get on the clinical trial, so she had to sell her house and move to Scandinavia, where she could get on the program. And I yelled at Senator McCain. I said, you have Indian reservations that have casinos. Why don't you have a non-FDA reservation right here in Arizona where we can do whatever we want? And he laughed. And when he laughed, I thought, oh,
I
my
didn't know
God.
you were such a libertarian. This is awesome.
I mean, he said that, and he laughed, and here I am at this expensive plate dinner in my youth, and I'm just like, the way he laughed, I realized, oh my God, it's all just a joke. It is absolutely a joke. So the poor are, it's not enough for the board to say, oh, Howard is not a licensed dentist in Arizona. But you're a consumer. If you want to go to a non-licensed dentist, this is America, go to a non-licensed dentist. I mean, we used to be barbers and bloodletters and worked outside until the Great Depression. In fact, I spent the night at the oldest dentist I ever watched work was George Rui. His son, George Rui II, was a dentist, and his son, George Rui III, is still a dentist in St. Joe, Missouri. And they all practice outside. And I said, well, what was it like during the Great Depression? He goes, oh, those were the best days. And I said, why? He says, well, we were all outside. We couldn't afford to go inside. Then everything got boarded up and the rents fell so low, we all moved inside. And when we all moved inside, we all decided at the St. Joe Dental Society, let's quit cutting hair and let's quit shining boots and let's try to step up our game and only do dentistry. And that was the whole 1932 to 36 is they were shaming other dentists who out of desperation would go back to cutting hair and shining boots, like, no, we're indoors and we're only doing dentistry. And now, it's not enough for the dentist to have all their luxuries, but they also are in bed with the mob. And if someone opens up from another country to treat the poor, which they don't treat and they don't take Medicaid, then they want to arrest them. And then the third issue, and I'll leave it at that, is direct access. I mean, we're talking about, discrimination. I mean, a hygienist has a 4-year degree, and the dentists have gone to the mob and made it so they cannot have their own practice. That is the most anti-American thing I've ever heard of. And if hygienists, and all the ones that I've seen, like in Colorado, she's in a small town, she's got a house, she loses her dining room table, puts a chair in there, and then if she sees something, I mean, she's a hygienist. She's got 4 years of college, been doing it forever. She'll write a referral slip, and then I talk to the dentist up the street. He's like, oh my God, I love her. Like, twice a day, she'll see someone and say, you need to go get number 30 crowned. And I love it. They've already been cleaned. They've already been triaged. I mean, they just love it. But the dentists are fighting that like it's the Alamo. And it's like, are you even an American? I mean, what would you do if your own daughter had a 4-year degree and her trade organization of a bunch of men said, no, you can't have a business. You can sell ice cream, but you can't clean people's teeth.
So, Howard, I love how you've attacked this, and it comes back to what I said in the beginning. There was a culture built where we got away from any kind of capitalistic nature, and we started to limit licenses, and our focus was, we're going to destroy supply. And this is just an extension of that, right? We're so intimidated by anybody else coming in, instead of saying, we're going to step up our game and bring more care to patients. We're going to bring better care. We're going to create an experience that's the next level. We say, no. Let's just eliminate anybody else from coming into this marketplace. And, it's not unique to dentists, but it's other professionals too, who say, and here's where I think it starts, Howard. How does a dental school charge $500,000 for a degree unless they say to you, by the way, this is the hardest work you'll ever do? One of the things Dr. Evans always tells associates is, congratulations, you just finished the easiest part of your career. Now, he's not being mean. He's trying to set them up for success. And the way you set someone up for success is know what the battle is in front of you, right? And I think one of the problems is like, hey, all you ever needed was this degree, and then you're going to make all of this money. That's not how the world works. There's a bunch of customers out there who are demanding more access to care. And access isn't just Medicaid patients. They want it after work. They don't want a schedule that's 9 to 4 o'clock. All right. Can you imagine a Walgreens that's open from 9 to 4? Like, you and I could start a Walgreens tomorrow if all Walgreens were open from 9 to 4, because we're not meeting the customer's need, the patient's need. I mean, the same dentist who would say, listen, don't expand the support and care of other dentists, would also say, I'm so frustrated because Amazon Prime is taking 3 days to get here right now during COVID, right? Like, we're pretty entitled customers, and yet we don't give that same perspective to our customers, to patients.
I can't believe we've almost gone through an hour. I'm trying to get that quote. Stress causes we's and them's, not.
Uh, stress causes they and thems and we's and us's, right? It
Causes
creates
they's and them's
and we's and us's.
and we's and us's.
But really, everything is made up of individuals. This is my talk with my kids. I said, listen, there's good cops and there's bad cops. There's good white people and there's bad white people. There's good black people. There's bad black people. There's good ADA leaders and there's bad ADA leaders. There's good DSOs and there's terrible DSOs, right? We have to think more sophisticated than theys and thems and we's and us's. As soon as I hear someone say something like, well, it's because of them. I'm like, could you define, are we talking about Charlie or Frank or Henrietta, Susie? Who are we talking about? When we have a dental industry that says DSOs are evil, and I say, wait, which part are you saying? The dental part, the support part, or the organizational part? Which part did you want to eliminate from DSOs, right? Are you saying that when you bring in an associate, your job isn't to provide them support? Because aren't you a DSO technically? As soon as you hire an associate, isn't that associate saying, hey, I'd really like some mentorship, but I'd like to keep my autonomy, but I also want you to, I'm losing my,
Man, the internet is trying to block your face on the internet, man. I don't know, Emmet. Did you?
You know what?
Did you not put any Brill cream in your hair this morning? Did you?
For those who've seen my face, they kind of know why that it probably is doing that.
I have a face for iTunes. You have a face for YouTube. So let's be. But yeah,
anyway, you get my point. We can't have dentists arguing constantly with each other based on support systems. We can't have. Here's what's really brutal and where it starts. And you see this in your forums. Some poor dentist comes on and says, hey, this is the crown I just did. What do you think about it? You would think you threw meat in front of a bunch of lions. I mean, they don't support each other. They're just like brutal with each other. So anyway, we got to change that culture, Howard.
What would help you the most? I mean, you're on a big platform right now. You're talking to a lot of dentists. Are you looking for partners that are committed to their operation and want to join you? Or do you have, what if kids are listening to you right now? Do you have any jobs available? If someone needed a job, are you hiring right now?
Yeah, so I would say come over to our Facebook page, DSO Secrets, right? That's where we're having a lot of this conversation. And, I don't care what your perspective on DSOs. If you think they're evil, please come in. We want to hear where you've had a bad experience. We want to hear what needs to be taken out. I call them DCOs, dental control organizations. We want to eliminate them off the face of the earth. Come over to DSO Secrets. That conversation. I love dentists, especially those who say, I've got something special here and I want to scale it. You need to check out Dental Entrepreneur Organization, DEO. Like that's the mastermind group. If you've got entrepreneur, you don't need to want multiple locations. You just need to be entrepreneurial thinking, vision. That's the group I would say to be in. Yes, if you want to reach out to community dental partners and you're an associate, you want to talk to Dr. Copeland and to Jackie and team about where we have openings and where we're going. We'd love to have you if you fit the culture. We got our 9 pillars. You're going to get a lot of questions around your humility and gratitude and team loyalty and respect. But like if you
what are your 9 pillars? You just can't float 9 pillars and not name all 9 of them.
Wow. Okay. So humility, personal honesty and responsibility, team loyalty and respect, individual compassion, development and learning, gratitude, happiness and fun, health and balance, relationships, and customer service.
Wow. And
now, I'll tell you, we kind of have our core 3.
Do you have that? Go ahead.
Well, I would just say humility is a big deal to me. I mean, even from a business perspective, humility lets you see the resources that are around you. Oftentimes, Howard, the reason we feel stuck is we don't feel like we have any resources around us. And yet we have a front desk girl. We've got our assistant. We've got team members. If we're humble enough, we'll ask for help. Gratitude does the same thing. So anyway, those are my favorite, because gratitude says, yeah, I don't have this, but I do have this. I am in dentistry. We are in the top 1% of all income earners in the world, right? If you make over 100,000, do you know you're in the top 1% in the world for income?
You mean your ex-wife is in the top 1%? You don't mean the dentist. That's it. I can't believe all the crap I hear on financial planning. It's like, let me summarize financial planning. If you never get divorced and you're a doctor in the richest country in the world, you can do it at 60. One divorce, it's going to be 70. Two divorces, you will die at the chair. Okay, so just remember your financial planning 101.
I think those should be your 3 pillars. Those are awesome financial planning pillars right there.
So let's go through this. If I typed it right, so you're saying that your 9 core pillars are humility, personal honesty and responsibility, development and learning, health and balance, individual compassion, relationships and customer service, team loyalty and respect, happiness and fun, and gratitude. Will you go through those? You can skip humility because I'm the humblest person I've ever met in my life. I don't think there's anyone who even comes close to me in humility. But will you go through those 9 and help the dentist? I mean, they're probably driving to work right now. They might be on the treadmill, and problem I see with dentists, I've always called this Saddam Hussein syndrome, where they surround themselves with a bunch of yes people, and if anybody challenges them in their dental office, they be rude or caustic or toxic and cause a lot of turnover. I mean, I've witnessed several of my friends, a dental assistant, say, well, why is that a cavity? And they say, well, go to dental school and you'd know. And it's like, come on, you're trying to convince a patient to understand that they have a cavity and need it filled, and you can't even convince your own damn dental assistant? What is wrong with you? I mean, she's a human committed to dentistry. She has twice the enthusiasm of dentistry than your patient. And then you go ask that dumb doc, you say, well, what % of the diagnosed cavities in your office get filled? Because I know the national answer is 38%. So 2 out of 3 people you can't even convince to get a cavity filled, and your assistant has a legitimate question, and you be rude. So go through those 9. Start with humility.
Well, and we were really big on we don't want these to just be on the wall. These need to be things we're actually applying. I'm not big into here's the vision statement, we're not going to do it. So we actually have what's called pillar in a box. Our HR team puts together a daily activity that the teams do around each of these. So, in this month, if it's team loyalty and respect, then every day they'll have some kind of activity where they'll ask questions of each other. So just so you know, in fact, Dr. Evans said, here's how big I am on humility, Emmett. When we first interviewed, this was our first associates. I don't think we do this anymore, but it drove the initial thing. He said, when we go to hire a doc, let them know that I will fire them if the staff doesn't like them. All right. Talk about switching the curve you just talked about, right? If you had codependent staff with an egotistical dentist, you just eliminated that. You know what was so cool about it? Some dentists would be like, there's no way in heck I'm working at your organization, for Dr. Evans in that practice. And others were like, bring it on. They're going to love me, and I'm going to make sure that I take care of them. Right. So it really created this incredible group of dentists who were super humble and super supportive of staff. So that would be one way to eliminate what you were just talking about, Howard. Personal honesty and responsibility on that one. It's not my job, right? I mean, that's the common statement that we've got to eliminate. It's not my job. Well, it's not my fault. It's not my problem, etc. So how do we have self-awareness around our strengths and weaknesses? None of us are perfect. Are we in the pursuit of truth? Or are we in the pursuit of protecting our ego? Personal honesty and responsibility really calls that out. Listen, here's what I'm trying to grow to. I'm going to fail along the way. I'm going to own the failures, but we're playing a bigger game of personal development I mean, community dental partners, Smile Magic, it's not the end all and be all of life. Like life is about personal development. So if you're not getting the most out of that, then you're not really getting the most of our organization. Team loyalty and respect. I mean, I think that one's fairly obvious, but to your point, it's not as easy as people think. We have a platform in place. We call it Straight Talk, which basically says zero gossip or you're out of here. If you've got a problem with somebody, and we train people on how to do this, because a lot of people grew up in different family environments, they don't know how to do this. If you've got a problem with someone, here's how you approach that individual. If you're approaching anybody else but that individual, you're not doing straight talk and you're not following policy. Okay. Now, if that individual's too toxic or you feel nervous, then you can go up to your manager. If that's too scary for you, let's say that you're feeling oppressed or you've got sexual harassment, whatever it might be, then you can go to HR. And if you still don't feel comfortable, we have 1-855-TELL-US. So you can go all the way, just call directly. It'll go to our compliance and legal. It goes past everybody. And
what is that number? 855 tell us?
Yep. 1-855-TELL-US.
That is so cool. I've never even thought of that before.
We have it in the back and we have it in the front for the patients. So we get both sides, and we want to just give access. I want to know what's going on at the ground level. And I want people don't quit jobs, Howard. They quit bosses. They quit humans, right? They say, I don't want to be under their leadership anymore. And so we've got to know our job is the people development job. I mean, dentistry at the end of the day, it's a stack of humans supporting one another. And even the product is a human. It's on a human. Like your accountant gets a tax return he gives you. You don't get that luxury, right? The guys building out Invisalign, they've got robots that are able to print that. You don't have that luxury. Everything you deal with is humans, right? And so anyway, we're really big on protecting and developing out the humans, which is why individual compassion. I mean, if we're serving the underserved, you can't get frustrated with the fact they didn't show up. You've got to say to yourself, I wonder what things they're juggling in their life, like one car, one phone, kids that are sick, single moms, things like that. So we're really big on we are not going to play the toxic blame game. We are going to say, this is a human at the end of the day. They've got real challenges in their life. Like our job is to reach them where they're at. Now, I'll tell you something interesting around this, Howard. It will play very nicely into government. Government wants to provide insurance to those that are on Medicaid, et cetera. They want to say they are. Did you know that it's illegal in every state? It's illegal to market to Medicaid patients directly or to provide them any kind of incentive or rewards program like you would to a PPO or cash patient, because they don't actually want them to utilize the care. Right? They want to be able to say, we've got all these kids covered, but just don't do anything that makes them come in, right? Which is marketing. Anyway, it's a side thing. We have a lot of individual compassion. We're constantly looking at how to bridge that gap. Development and learning, if you're not a passionate learner, then there's no way you're going to really get into that personal honesty and responsibility. You're not going to be developing. Now, I would say that we have two types of people in our organization. We have rock stars and we have shooting stars, right? So we have those who their personal development is, hey, leave me in billing. Let me continue to incrementally get better. And I love being here and I love the culture. And then we have shooting stars who are like, hey, I want to grow. I want to learn. I want to develop. I want the next title. I want the next responsibility, et cetera. As long as it's grounded in humility, we love that. Which one else?
So you have to be a passionate learner to be a rock star, and the opposite is
star. No, okay. A shooting star for sure, but even a rock star. I mean, both of them.
Who's better, a rock star or a shooting star? I mean, I'm
need
taking this too meteorologically serious. I mean, a shooting star is the Earth going 60,000 miles an hour just ate a piece of rock and it exploded in the atmosphere. And a rock star is, I assume, Mick Jagger So what's better in this analogy, a rock star
You-
or a
well,
shooting
that's
star?
that's the best part, Howard, is you actually need both in your organization, right? Every one of us has had the hygienist who's constantly wanting to move up in pay and in responsibility. And you're like, I really wish you were just like a rock star. You would just stay where you're at because you're doing amazing here. So, but you need the shooting stars. You need those who are driving, but then you also need those who are like, I just want to stay here for 20 years and like provide amazing customer service. So you need both. That's the point. You can't have, if you only have shooting stars, you just have people lined up constantly asking, to be the chief, no Indians.
I just wish Carl Sagan could weigh in on the shooting star analogy. I'm pretty sure he would say, okay, a rock star made it to the stage, and a shooting star was just a car wreck collision of Earth and a piece of dust. Okay, so next was, did you want to keep going on that one or go to health and balance?
Yeah, we can go to health and balance. Okay, so this one I'm not as good at. I'll just be honest. I would say that Dr. Evans is much better at this. If he was on here, you'd see someone who is very ripped. He does a great job with 7 kids and working in the practice and being the clinical director to also find time for his health. But I think it's an aspiration for all of us, and it's a reminder that we've got to take care of our bodies. We are in the healthcare space. I do love my Peloton, by the way. If anyone's looking, that is the place to go. I can get on there. COVID proved that I was right. You should have a Peloton, but it's been really great. I've never crashed on it, which is good for me. And you can, just pump out some energy.
So Chad has 7 kids?
Yeah.
So all the Americans want to know, okay, that means he's either Catholic or Mormon. There's 7 kids in my family. My 2 older sisters are nuns. He's got to be a Catholic or a Mormon. There's no other.
Yeah. Mormon, served a mission in Chile, fluent in Spanish. His wife also served a mission in Chile, fluent in Spanish. So, I mean, yeah, just cool people.
Yeah, that is cool. And Chile is about the size of the United States. I could not believe how big that country is.
Yeah, and they were in Santiago. So, yeah.
Oh, my God. Love Chile. Love Chile.
Yeah, and I think, too, going on those missions, right, for those 2 years, right, I served with deaf people, Dr. Evans down in Chile. We've got other dentists who've been to Italy. Dr. Copeland actually is LDS, served a mission in Italy. You get a perspective of the world. You get a perspective of different humans in different groups, and you start to see that you have individual compassion.
I'll tell you, the Mormon missionaries did more for my economic mind than going to ASU and getting my MBA. And I kid you not, I've lectured in 50 countries. If you go to Dental Town, if you go to the international section, all 220 countries are listed there. And all the ones I lectured at, I always say my trip to China, Indonesia, Cambodia, Taiwan, all of them, Russia. And my gosh, when I see 2 boys on a bicycle with a white shirt and tie, I knew to slam on the brakes, jump out, because they're totally just left America. They did good in school. They're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Because remember, in economics, I mean, let's be serious about economics. What fuels an economy is young people who want to leave their parents' nest and go get a big nest, attract a maid, have a family, and those are the ones buying houses on a 30-year bet, trying to go to dental school to get a better job. That segment of the population, I mean, if anybody is single and in their 20s and wants to move to America, they should just be granted citizen at the airport. I mean, that is fueling the economy. Not the people like me who already did all that, and now all they're going to do is increase their health care consumption and all that kind of stuff. But so they're at the prime of their life, and I jump out of the car, and I always ask them the same question. So what's different between Nicaragua and the United States? And then it almost invariably gets to poor, and then I say, well, why do you think it's richer where you grew up in the United States, and why do you think it's poor here? And it's that fresh mind that hasn't been polluted. Just they've been here for a year. They learn the language. They learn the people, and it always comes back. Every one of them comes back to the same deal. They go, well, they kind of have a family problem. I mean, there's a lot of moms without husbands. There's a lot of moms with 3 kids from 3 different dads. The dads aren't there. And being a man who had 4 boys, and we went out of the country. I always took at least 3 or 4 of them with me. And I said, you hear that, boys? I mean, anybody can make a child. It's the raising them that's going to decide, are we going to be poor or not? And I just love their fresh ideas. And in fact, someone should write a book. It'd be a great book. There's 2 books I want to write. One is interviews with Mormon missions. Right at the end, they came back from different countries. Like, okay, so you were born here. The control country might be in Scandinavia, and you were down here in Bolivia. Talk about the difference there.
Yeah.
And the other one was, my favorite show is the Super Bowl. My second favorite show is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Been listening to those reception speeches forever. In fact, when I lectured in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland for Patterson, up in the top where the concerts are, just the most fun time ever. I asked them for permission to do this. They still haven't got back to me, but the acceptance speeches are all the same. They all made it because they're still working. They're still on the road. They kept the band together. They've had the same manager for 30 years. Look at the difference in the Police and U2. U2 keep a bunch of crazy Irishmen together. I'm Irish Catholic. There could not be anyone crazier than Conor McGregor and U2. I mean, that's what Irish do better than anyone on the world. They're just batshit crazy. Even Freud said that psychoanalysis does not work on Irish. I mean, he's Sigmund Freud. That's the greatest honor that any psychiatrist ever said. The first one said, yeah, you can't treat the Irish. And I'm like, yes. But they kept the band together. They kept the manager. Everything you're saying about your 9 core principles had nothing to do with how you obturate a root canal. Do you have a shoulder prep or a chamfer? Vinyl polysiloxane, poly. Everything you learned in dental school has nothing about being a successful human or running a successful dental office. Would you?
Well, Howard, what is the patient an expert on, right? Do they ever get out of the chair and say, oh my goodness, you knew how to do a filling? Oh my goodness, look how good this is done, right? One, they have no clue around all that investment you made into clinical care. I'm sorry to tell you this, they think you're just supposed to be able to do that, right? It's a given. The one thing they're an expert on is how they felt. In fact, it's the one thing. And so we do these feeling audits, which sounds really fluffy, where we'll actually drive up to our practices like, how do we feel right now? We walk in. How do we feel right now? Okay, we just got our x-rays. How do we feel? Because it's the only thing they're actually an expert on. If you look at medical malpractice cases, it is not tied. There's no correlation to the clinical capability. It's all correlated to bedside manner. Anyway, another thing you need to check out then, if you're into that, is the church put out a proclamation called The Family, a Proclamation to the World. Best economic, if you will. It's funny because that's exactly how I looked at it.
Post it on Dental Town.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
it is probably the best. I mean, it's all about the importance of the family.
I wish you do. I wish you'd make the post on Dental Town, because we're going to release this in a day or two. And on Dental Town, we just released under the podcast. By the way, on the Dental Town app, which 60,000 dentists have downloaded, there's 250,000 dentists on Dental Town. 60,000 have downloaded the app, and we now have 62 dental podcasts on that app. And the dentists that I talk to, they always tell me the same thing. I get in the car, I'm on my way to work, I got an hour commute. I know when I get there, I'm going to get my butt kicked by a molar root canal. So the first endodontist I see, I just listen to that. Or another day, it might be a staff issue. But I just want to summarize all the staff issue problems to begin with. And that is, Doc, when you go into an office, it's all measured by staff turnover. I mean, if your average dentist only lives with you for a year, and you're the one hiring and running the office, and we got 10 years of data on you, we got 10 years of data that you're not good at this. And then when you know you're not good at molar endo, you send it to the 4,000 endodontists. When you know you can't pull that wisdom tooth, you send it to the 5,000 oral surgeons. When you don't want to do ortho, you send it to the 10,800 orthodontists. So I just can't believe after 10 years of all this staff misery that you're still in charge of it. Dude, you suck at HR. And when I finally found my Lori, she was actually hired as a bookkeeper, but she was back there by me in the back doing the book. So all the staff HR, they come back there and talk to me. Lori's sitting right next to me. And then as soon as she left, she was this shy, humble girl. And she's like, well, and she was telling me that. And finally, after about 30 days, I realized, okay, this woman has given HR a ton more thought than I have. And the research is clear on that. I mean, the research is clear on that when you go to the other primates, the average female will make about 5 interactions in the herd for every one the man makes. I mean, the woman's nursing, playing, chasing, talking, and the man is just always sitting there. Just think of your dad on the couch, just sitting there. He's just, you go to a gorilla exhibit, I mean, sometimes you have to say, is that dad alive? I mean, he's just staring off into space. Did he have a stroke? So if you suck at something, stop doing it. And all this fluffy stuff, I mean, Lori's always having the same thing, all these events and games.
She knows how to take care of humans.
Yeah,
right?
and I'm just sitting there like...
We've got to have a team around us. And again, Howard, you see why humility is number one, right? Like there's so much power in just having that self-awareness. So anyway, happiness and fun, you see that. Relationship and customer service, I think you see where that all starts to tie together, right? At the end of the day, we've got to take care of a customer. And we apply this not just to the patient, but if you're the accounting department, who's your customer within the DSO, right? If you're the marketing department, who's your customer? See, one of the things, if you walked in to our 25,000 square feet here, and you asked any of them, who's your number one customer? They'd all answer the same. They'd say the dentist, because they know a DSO their job is to support the dentist, right? Then you'd say something like, well, then who's the patient? And they'd say, oh, that's the customer of our customer. So we help them get customers because our customer wants customers. Right. And it really creates clarity on like what your role and responsibility in life is if you know who your customers are.
And
like I know in my marriage who my customer is. Right.
So of these 9 core pillars, where are dentists making the most mistake? Where is the industry doing better, and where is the industry of dentist providers doing the worst?
It's interesting. I don't think this is just a dentist thing. I would say I'm seeing this even in our DSO and so forth. Humility is a tough one, and it's actually more difficult the more education you have. So as you start getting an MBA or you start getting the DMD or the DDS, you start believing that that is your ticket to success and that it covers up all of the rest of your stinky crap. Right? And it gets you out of humility. What you kept mentioning is the beginner's mind. When you were talking about those missionaries, they've got this beginner's mind, right? And all of us are struggling to stay in that beginner's mindset. Maybe that's why, Howard, the best entrepreneurs are always focused on the younger generation because it keeps them in their beginner's mind. My daughter texted me during this and said, Dad, don't forget, we need to learn how to do that TikTok together. All right. I've had to learn like what TikTok was, but I'm like, keep me in the beginner's mind, keep me in that happiness and fun. That's where creativity comes from. We don't actually want to retire. We want to retire from things, but retirement means to be put out of service, right? None of us want to be put out of service, but we might want to retire from doing HR. We might want to retire from figuring out, how payroll works. We might want to retire from doing IT stuff, right? So all of us want to retire from certain things. We have a personal mission and responsibility, and that's where team all starts coming together. So I would say that a lot of dentists think that this is a rugged individualist game. They've read too many books about Steve Jobs, and it messed them up. They think that they come in with the vision, they fire anybody that's not doing what they want, and that's what leadership is. And you and I know that that's not at all what leadership is, right?
And his humility got him killed.
Yeah,
his lack of humility got him killed. I mean, he had the best kind of pancreatic cancer, and they're like, this is the treatable form. And he's like, oh, I'm smarter than all doctors, and I'm going to do it by macro diet and all this kind of stuff. And then when it started to kill him and he was going down, they're like, dude, you waited past your window. And in fact, one of the last things he did, he bought land in another state so he could get on the liver transplant list. And he actually got on the liver transplant list. So some other guy that could have got a liver didn't get his liver because he had money. His daughter hates him, all this stuff. I never got the whole Steve Jobs
Yeah, I
thing.
don't know that I could define success that way too. You know, I tend to define success for me at maybe a bigger level. Like, I want the family organization to stay together as much as humanly possible. And I understand there's circumstances where that's not possible. I want those around me to enjoy success. To me, this isn't an individual game. You know, to me, DSO matches really nicely because it's about taking care of somebody else so that they can succeed to the next level. And I think that's where real companies scale, especially for the long term. Now, you might see in the short term, Howard, like someone roll something together, call it big EBITDA, sell it off, and they're rich. Those only are short games. And if that's what their life's made up of, you'll see that play out over time. So anyway, you're getting me into our deeper philosophy here on the 9 pillars. But I really think that if dentists played at that level of emotional thought, when some poor dentist who's brand new posts a crown that he did and asks about the margins on some forum, they wouldn't go and rip him a new one and say, you should just send your patient to me. You're terrible. They would support them. They would say, here's what you're doing great. Here's where you need to be better. Because that poison that you think is just on social media, that you think is just on your forum, it leaks out to all your other relationships. And then you wonder why you have turnover. And guess what you hear? There's just no good associates today. You just can't find good hygienists. You can't find good staff. Guess what? When there's a bunch of data points about one individual, guess where the problem is?
And the other thing, when people are being toxic, you have to remember that like economics. Economics is just a study of transactions. I mean, it knows I bought an iPhone. It knows I got paid this much. You know, it's just transactions. You don't actually know what the person's thinking. But whenever a person talks, they're just projecting. So if you just shut up and listen to this toxic rant, you get to see inside the mind it's coming out of. And my joke for dentists, the reason dentists are such egomaniacs is because the stakes are so low. Who gives a crap? You know what I mean? I mean, you take this stuff so serious, and my gosh, I mean, and the other thing is, the anthropologists will tell you 120 billion humans have already lived and died. There's almost 8 billion alive today. You're not going to meet 99% of them. So we don't even know what the first 120 billion, we don't even know what their name was, let alone what they thought. And you're not even going to meet 1/10 of 1% of the people. So you basically don't exist, and you're all worried about what everybody thinks of you. Well, here's an insight. Nobody's ever thought of you. The first 120 billion people never thought of you. The 8 billion people alive today, 99.999% never thought of you. So you don't exist. The stakes are so low. I hope that you're just talking so that at least one person knows that you do exist and you are alive.
I love your play on that for humility. My dad had a saying. He said, Emmet, you won't worry about what others think of you when you realize they don't.
Right.
Right. And that's so true. Like, I have a circle of influence and I'm happy to help within that. And outside of that, I just don't have control. Like, I have these buckets every day, a lot of things coming in. I avoid the news, just, full disclosure here, because it's a bunch of stuff that I don't have any control over. And if it's really important, someone's going to walk in and say, hey, did you hear about X, Y, and Z? I've really got to protect my brain to be able to influence the things that are within my control. And I try to avoid my brain believing and getting stimulated around things that aren't in its control. So, I mean, this is one trick high-level entrepreneurs use, Howard, is they don't watch news because they know news is a business model. News's job is to create fear and anxiety so that you feel insecurity, so you buy product from the ad that's coming down. It's a proven business model that works really well. If anyone thinks it's about information, right, then they just don't understand the economics of the business model. That is not free information. And I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, they need to fund that and they're going to utilize your brain to do that. So I just avoid it altogether. And I just work within, my circle of influence to say, where is the world going? And what I really use as my target is, what do my customers need? And if I'm servicing customers, it's really hard to go out of business when a bunch of customers want your products. If you keep chasing the customer and helping them succeed, it's really hard to go out of business. So I've just found a ton of security around, hey, dentists need this. Now, again, it started with a best friend. Hey, dentists need this. Let's go solve that. Patients need this. Let's go solve that. Oh, now dentists with multiple groups need this. Let's go solve that.
Where did you live when you guys were best friends at 2? Where do you guys grow up?
We were actually born in Las Vegas, in Henderson, Nevada. So not far from you there.
And is that where Jeffrey Mason is your clinical director there?
No, Jeffrey Mason worked for us for a period of time, but
he's no longer there.
Yeah, I don't think so. We have 52 doctors and a clinical team and a clinical executive committee. And so I'm sorry, Jeffrey, if you're still here and I thought that you had left.
But if you go to Dental Town, if you go to members and you just search Magic, I mean, there's like 50 Smile Magic employees, dentists on Dental Town. So I've known these guys a long time. But I want to get back to, do demographics matter? That was where that question was going. And that is, again, I'm worried about the kids. Howard's all right. These kids coming out of school, do demographics matter? Or are you still doing a lot of business in Texas and Nevada because that makes more economic sense? I know Arizona is ground zero for DSOs because our pro-business governor recognizes any license. These hospitals were all coming to him saying, we can't get nurses. And they had all these nurses, but they didn't want to go through boards. And he said, well, this is insane. You're a practicing nurse in California, and you can't cross the border and be a nurse here at the hospital, and we're a shortage. And so 18% of all the dentists in Arizona work for a DSO. And if you look at the long tail, the last 5 states don't even have 1% penetration. So does that make you like Texas, Arizona, Nevada more? If it was some kid that graduated and wasn't seeing opportunity wherever they were living, do you think some states are just better for a young dentist grad?
Well, I would say Texas, is actually pretty conservative and still very much controlled by the organized dentistry 1980s mindset. So I wouldn't say that that's what really brings Texas the benefit. And it's surprising because Texas does a really good job on a lot of other parts to supporting businesses. But dentistry, the dentists have been able to kind of limit a lot of the capitalism around that. I would say what makes Texas great is just the conservative platform that's here, which keeps families together. If we really got down to base economics here, and then where they're at in the state allows them to, where they're at in the United States allows them to have a lot of diversity of economy here. So you've got all the development of technology, you've got oil and gas, you've got, different transportation, et cetera. And they've got a low tax base other than the real estate tax. Everything else, they don't have an income tax. So they're very business friendly. I don't know if you remember when Rick Perry was just directly going to California saying, hey, come to Texas, right? Which, by the way, our founding fathers, that's what they wanted. They wanted states to compete, right? They wanted the federal government to be a really thin platform, protect us against foreign powers, help with interstate commerce, and then states compete on their governments. And, I think Texas has done a great job. I think they've gotten the Governor's Cup now 8 years in a row, which is the, fastest growing economy. So we've liked Texas. It's been good for our families. Nevada, we actually don't have practices in, but we're not opposed to any state. What I chase more than the regulations or any of those things is I chase the customer. So if I have a dentist, and we're talking to quite a few right now, and again, if you're interested in this, come to DSO Secrets on Facebook. You can message me. Okay, here's what I'm going to do.
What if they don't have a Facebook page? Like I don't have a Facebook page.
All right, I'm
got 300,000 followers and quit Facebook. So
I'm gonna give out 2 things. I'm gonna give out my cell phone, and they can text me. It's 940-222-1610. and I'm going to give out my assistant's email address. I'd give out my email address. I can give my email address. It's just, I won't check it as often. You can text me directly at that number, or you can email
Email
Karina
Karina. That I'm telling you, that's the
yeah,
smarter thing. Email Karina.
at K Diaz, Diaz, at cdp.dental, Community Dental Partners, CDP, cat, dog, Paul, .dental. There's no .com on that. Either way, and if you have something that you want to talk through, I'll try to schedule some time on the calendar. So if somebody has something, or they can just email, or they can just come on DSO
And
Secrets
why
and
is
rant.
Karina Diaz a personal assistant to Emmet Scott in Texas when she could have been Emmet Smith, the
I
Dallas
know
Cowboy running back
would
with
have been
36-inch
great.
hamstrings?
And really cool dance skills too,
Oh
right?
my God! When I learned that he had 36-inch quads, I mean, can you even imagine that? I mean, I'd have to gain 20 pounds to get my belly that big. I mean, what an amazing, he was so fun to watch growing up. I can't believe how long we've gone, and I'd stay with you for 40 days and 40 nights, but I know you got other things to do.
Howard, thank you. It's been
Um,
awesome.
what any just the final word for the kid again. My mission is, she's 24, she's $400,000 in debt, she's scared. um can she get a job with you?
Yeah, absolutely can get a job, not only with me, but with a lot of different groups. I mean, at the end of the day, this is again what I'd say. The power is with you. Focus on personal development. Come in humble, willing to learn. I mean, the same things you would tell your kids, right, Howard? You'd say, if you're going to go apply for a job, even if you're going high end, don't be a jerk. Be willing to learn. Yes, you've got your education, but let's be honest. I've got my education. You got yours. It was meaningless on a lot of parts. Know that it's a platform to stand on, but now you've got the real work ahead of you. If you come in to any employer, I don't care who you are, and you say, hey, I'm here to learn. I'm here to support the culture. I'm excited about what you guys are accomplishing here. And I just want to contribute in the way I can contribute. I mean, who doesn't hire that person on the spot?
And
Right?
let me just say a couple more things. I mean, Dentaltown was 5 years before Facebook, and it still grows. 1,000 new dentists a month. They got 250,000.
It's
But the
awesome.
classified ad section is insane. Like right now, there are 1,243 jobs listed available to hire. Tell your DSO friends, keep posting those jobs on this board. On the app, I got all the measurements app. Like I don't know what dentists have. For some reason, dentists only use iPhones. I mean, because we know if it's an iPhone or Samsung, dentists love iPhones. I don't care when people say, "Well, Samsung Droids, that's the major market." Well, I'm not in that market. I'm a dentist, and I can tell on their iPhone where they're at, when they're on, and the classifieds are insanely busy. And also buying and selling a practice. It's there's so much.
Can I
So
give him a couple questions too, Howard, to ask? Ask about what the culture is. If you kind of get deers in the headlights, I'm not saying run away, but just ask them like, hey, what is your culture here? If they say, well, we just do dentistry, then just know it's kind of only so deep. Ask them about what kind of support they provide. Hey, I really want to grow in my capability. I did this much stuff in school, but like I want to grow. Like what kind of support? If they're like, well, what do you mean support? I just tell you what to do or whatever it might be. And listen, this isn't just about DSOs. If you're going to go work for another dentist, you want to be asking these same questions. I mean, Howard, some of the worst employers in the world, and frankly, some of the worst DSOs are ran by dentists who think they can tell everybody what to do because they're a dentist. So you just want to like dig through that, ask really poignant questions, and then ask around comp. Now, something I could post too is we've got a comp sheet that we give to anybody who's going to come here or when we go out to schools and we say, listen, dentists sometimes play games with each other on how they're compensating. They'll tell you this percentage, but it's excluding this. I've got a sheet so that they can do an apples to apples comparison for all the different, job offers. Because you'll hear someone say, "Oh, I'll pay you 35%." Now it doesn't include, and then you also have to pay for your rent and utilities, and everything else. And you're like, wow, so I'm really like making 10%. So we've created a sheet to help dentists. We're really big on like transparency. All of our dentists get their own app. And so they're able to see all the compensation, how it runs through our system. We're on Open Dental, by the way, for the same reasons you are. I wanted all the information. And so there is no games being played. I've seen dentists change fee schedules so they don't have to pay other dentists as much money. All of that stuff you have total transparency on with Community Dental Partners supported practices. And so I'd ask questions like that. How do I know that you're being fair on my compensation? All right. Do you have a system and process for me to do that? And if they're irritated by that, then, you might, again, all the power is with you. Go choose where you want to work. And it might not be where you stay the rest of your life, but go get the most out of it, squeeze the juice out of it, really learn, do the personal development, and then stand on that. All of us are still figuring out what we want to be when we grow up. Don't be discouraged if you need to go ahead and move organizations at some point. You're going to reach a different level and say, you know what, now that I know myself better, here's really what I want out of life. So that would be my advice to my kids and to my young people is just go take some chances, enjoy the journey. You're in the top 1% in the world. Stop acting like you're failing when you're really on top of your game, you're succeeding. And stop acting like this is bad, that there's consolidation. All it is a bunch of support coming in. And you get to decide as the customer who wins and who loses in that support organization.
So when you say squeeze the juice out, I imagine with 5 redheads that you only have ginger ale in your house.
Ba-bum. I mean, I can't top that.
And the last thing is, what you said, the bizarrest questions I always see on Dental Town is, okay, I went to my hometown and there's 2 dentists hiring and one will pay me 25%, but I don't have to pay the lab bill. And the other one will pay me 35%, but I have to pay half the lab bill. Which one should I go after? I'm like, my God, if that's your only question, you need help. I mean, you want to go in there. What if one has had 2 hygienists that have both been there 10, 20 years? Everybody in the new girl's 5 years old, been in there 5 years, and the other guy.
Patient flow? What's the culture? I mean,
if the staff doesn't stay, the patients don't stay. And you're not going to stay. I mean, you're going to be happy if the existing staff is happy, so they've stayed, and the patients are coming back because they've been happy. Everybody's happy or everybody's running for the doors. And on that note, I'm going to free you because I know you're so damn kind. You'll just stay here as long. Thank you so much for coming on the show. But I do, final thing, I want to get your clinical directors to come back on because when I'm on Dental Town, you can't even get 2 dentists to agree that today's Tuesday. They don't look at science. I mean, you show them amalgams last twice as long as composites are like, not in my special hands. I have special hands. So how do you be a clinical director? Because when I talk to Benco reps, she tells me, well, this other place, they want to lower their supplies, but every dentist wants a different brand of composite and bonding agent and gloves. And so all their decisions are higher costs. Then guess who they blame for higher costs? Benco. And so if you want to get one or two.
You're going to love them. Make sure you ask them about this. Make sure you ask them about the clinical constitution that they put together. Make sure you ask them about the clinical executive committee that they have together. And make sure you ask them around their vision of, hey, the best healthcare in the world has alignment. If you have a problem, you're not going down the street. You're looking at Mayo Clinic, Kaiser, Cleveland Clinic. So how do you get that level of alignment? Those are the people we want to be learning from. So anyway, you're going to love them on here. And you're going to love how they're tackling that. And what's awesome about it is you're going to see all the dentists underneath love it too, right? That's the cool part.
Well, I wish they'd start a thread on Dental Town about it. Then when we release your podcast, I'll put that in the thread. So the 9 culture things, if you want to start that thread or one of the dentists, both of them are already members at Dental Town, whatever. But let's get a thread going because that's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was an honor to podcast you.
Thank you so much. I absolutely love being with you.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank you.